He was outrageous. I mean, he was just a beautiful spirit, you know. I mean, he certainly didn't deserve that, you know. And he's another, I mean, once again, we're bringing, I guess, the audio.
Keith Richards, the legendary guitarist of the Rolling Stones, is a name synonymous with rock and roll rebellion. Over decades, he has created some of the most iconic riffs in music history, influencing generations of guitarists across every genre. But while Richards is celebrated for his talent and innovation, he is also known for being brutally honest about his opinions. And when it comes to other guitarists, he hasn't always held back. Unlike many musicians who shy away from controversy, Richards doesn't mince words. If he respects your playing, he'll say so. But if he thinks you lack originality, skill, or soul, he won't hesitate to express it, sometimes with devastating bluntness. Over the years, stories have emerged of Richards publicly and privately criticizing fellow guitarists, sharing insights that reveal a side of rock music fans rarely see, the unvarnished truth of what one of its icons really thinks. In this video, we're diving into the 6 guitarists Keith Richards hated the most. These aren't minor disagreements over style or technique. They're hard feelings, artistic rivalries, and honest assessments from a man who knows the guitar inside and out. From players he considered showy and pretentious to others he believed lacked soul, Richards's list is as fascinating as it is shocking. Whether you're a die-hard Rolling Stones fan or simply a lover of guitar history, this is a rare glimpse into Keith Richards' personal take on his peers. So buckle up, because some of these names might surprise you, and the reasons behind his disdain are even more. Reveal Keith Richards, as one of rock's most iconic guitarists, has spent decades mastering the art of rhythm, melody, and tone. But despite his respect for talent, there are certain players whose style, approach, or attitude simply rub him the wrong way. One of the first on his list of disliked guitarists is Yngwie Malmsteen, the neoclassical shredder known for lightning fast runs and highly technical solos. Richards has publicly and privately expressed frustration with guitarists like Malmsteen, who rely heavily on technique over feeling. While Yngwie's speed and precision are undeniably impressive, Richards sees it as a lack of soul and groove. For him, music isn't just about notes or speed. It's about emotion, vibe, and connecting with the listener. A solo may be technically perfect, but if it doesn't make your heart beat or move your feet, it's missing the essence of rock and roll. Insiders recount that Richards once said in an interview that Malmsteen's style feels like a machine going through the motions, implying it lacks the spontaneity and character that define great guitarists. Keith's philosophy has always been about feel rather than flash. His iconic riffs, from Satisfaction to Jumpin' Jack Flash, thrive on rhythm, emotion, and attitude, not on the sheer velocity of notes. To see someone elevate technical skill above all else runs counter to everything Richards values in music. It's also about authenticity. Yngwie's precise, classically influenced playing, while brilliant, strikes Keith as overly calculated. In his eyes, great guitarists don't just execute, they live the music, make mistakes, and improvise with raw emotion. That's why Malmsteen earns a spot on this list. Exceptional skill, but a lack of that intangible soul that Richards prizes above all else. The second guitarist that drew Richards' ire is Steve Vai, another virtuoso known for complex techniques, exotic scales, and theatrical performances. While Vai has millions of fans and is admired for pushing the boundaries of guitar playing, Richards has described him as all show and no guts. He acknowledges Vai's technical brilliance, but believes his playing is overly elaborate, sometimes sacrificing emotion for spectacle. Keith's approach has always been grounded in simplicity, groove, and musical honesty, qualities he feels are missing in overly flamboyant technical players. Richards's critique isn't personal, it's philosophical. It's a statement about what he values in a guitarist: the ability to make music feel alive, to communicate emotion, and to connect with the audience beyond just the mechanics of playing. For him, speed, complexity, and technical fireworks mean very little without feeling. That's why both Malmsteen and Vai, despite their undeniable talent, made it onto his most hated list, not because they're bad musicians, but because they represent everything Richards consciously avoids in his own style. By examining these first two names, it becomes clear that Keith Richards' dislikes aren't about ego or rivalry. They reflect a deeply held philosophy about music. The heart and soul behind the guitar matter far more than flash and technical skill. And by the 1980s, guitar music had exploded with technical virtuosos, stadium rock, and an ever-increasing emphasis on flashy solos. While Eddie Van Halen was celebrated as one of the most innovative guitarists of the era, he also drew criticism from purists like Keith Richards. Richards has openly expressed frustration with Van Halen's approach, not out of disrespect for his skill, but because it diverged from the essence of what Keith believes makes a guitarist truly great. Eddie Van Halen is legendary for his tapping technique, lightning-fast runs, and inventive use of effects. He transformed the guitar into a lead instrument capable of astonishing feats. But Richards sees this as prioritizing flash over feel. To him, Van Halen's solos, while dazzling, often emphasize speed and spectacle rather than groove and soul. Keith's own playing, deeply rooted in rhythm, subtle nuances, and emotional phrasing, is the polar opposite. For Richards, music should breathe and swing. It shouldn't feel like a technical exercise or a competition for speed. Richards has described some Van Halen solos as a lot of notes, but not much heart, emphasizing the difference between showmanship and authentic expression. He appreciates creativity and innovation, but only when it serves the song and conveys emotion. In his eyes, a guitarist who dominates with technique but leaves listeners unmoved falls short of the true purpose of music. Another guitarist who drew Richards' criticism is Joe Satriani, famed for instrumental rock that's precise, complex, and polished. While Richards recognizes Satriani's technical skill, he believes his music lacks the raw energy and imperfection that make guitar music compelling. Satriani's compositions, often built on speed, scales, and effects, prioritize virtuosity over emotional connection. To Keith, this approach is cold and overly calculated. Unlike Sly or Hendrix, whose playing communicates urgency, life, and chaos, Satriani's work feels detached. No matter how impressive the notes may be, what unites Richards' criticism of both Van Halen and Satriani is philosophy. He isn't attacking technical ability. He respects musicianship. The issue is emphasis. For Keith, the true purpose of a guitar isn't to dazzle with technique. It's to groove, to drive the song, and to make people feel something real. Eddie Van Halen and Joe Satriani, brilliant as they are, often prioritize mechanics over emotion, and that runs counter to Richards' deeply held values. It's also worth noting that Richards' dislikes are rarely personal. He doesn't hate these guitarists as individuals. He disagrees with their approach. For him, a guitarist who prioritizes heart, groove, and authenticity, even if less technically flashy, is far superior to a virtuoso whose playing feels sterile or overly polished. By understanding these two names, it becomes clear that Keith Richards' hatred is philosophical rather than personal. It's about a belief in what the guitar represents: emotion, storytelling, and raw human energy, over technical fireworks. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Slash, the iconic guitarist of Guns N' Roses, had become a global rock superstar. With his top hat, Les Paul, and signature riffs, Slash defined a generation of rock guitarists. But despite his popularity and undeniable talent, Keith Richards has expressed a mix of admiration and frustration toward him. Richards respects Slash's technical skill and distinctive tone, yet he has criticized what he perceives as an over-reliance on solos and theatrical flair. To Keith, Slash embodies the look and sound era of rock, iconic visuals and instantly recognizable riffs, but sometimes at the expense of musical subtlety. While Richards himself thrives on rhythm and songcraft, he has suggested in interviews that Slash's playing often prioritizes attention-grabbing moments rather than supporting the song itself. The tension is philosophical rather than personal. Richards' style is rooted in serving the song. His riffs and solos exist to enhance the music, to drive emotion, and to create cohesion with the rhythm section. Slash, by contrast, is more inclined to spotlight himself, delivering soaring solos that dominate the listener's attention. Keith's issue isn't with talent or success. He admires both, but with approach. For him, a guitarist who prioritizes ego over ensemble feels disconnected from the core purpose of music. Another guitarist Keith has criticized is Steve Lukather of Toto. Known for his precision, versatility, and session work, Lukather is technically brilliant. However, Richards has implied that his style can sometimes feel calculated and safe. To Keith, Lukather's work, while impressive, lacks the raw, untamed energy that defines truly great rock guitar. Where Richards thrives on imperfection and groove, Lukather often delivers controlled, polished performances, technically flawless, but sometimes emotionally restrained. What ties Slash and Lukather together in Richards' critique is their tendency to emphasize technique, polish, or signature flair over the heart of the music. Keith believes that a great guitarist isn't just a showman. They're a storyteller, a rhythmic force, and a collaborator. If the playing is perfect but the soul is missing, it falls short in his eyes. It's also important to highlight that Richards' critiques often stem from respect. He recognizes Slash and Lukather as accomplished musicians, but his frustrations lie in their priorities. Keith's philosophy is that the guitar should serve the song, not the ego. Slash's soaring solos and Lukather's polished versatility, though remarkable, sometimes clash with that principle. By examining these two guitarists, we see a clear pattern. Keith Richards' hatred isn't about dislike for the person. It's about a fundamental disagreement on what guitar playing should be. Emotion, groove, and authenticity come first. Speed, polish, or showmanship come second. With 4 guitarists explored, only 2 remain. And these final names reveal some of Richards' strongest opinions, sparking controversies that even die-hard fans have debated for years. Keith Richards and Eric Clapton share a long history in rock music. Both are British guitar icons whose influence stretches across decades. Yet, despite mutual respect in some areas, Richards has been outspoken about his frustrations with Clapton, particularly regarding what he perceives as overcalculated playing and occasional pretentiousness. Clapton's career is legendary. From Cream to Derek and the Dominoes, he has crafted some of rock and blues' most recognizable riffs. But for Richards, Clapton sometimes represents technical mastery without enough emphasis on feel. While Clapton's solos are precise, articulate, and perfectly structured, Richards feels they can occasionally lack the raw, untamed energy that defines the best guitar work. Keith has described this as playing notes without life, a critique that reflects his core philosophy. Music must breathe, swing, and convey authenticity. Richards' criticism also extends to Clapton's approach to live performance. While Clapton meticulously recreates his studio work on stage, Richards thrives on spontaneity and imperfection, believing that small mistakes and improvisation make performances memorable. To him, Clapton's polish, while admirable, sometimes feels calculated and rehearsed, diminishing the natural, chaotic beauty of rock and roll. The final guitarist on Richards' list is Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits. Knopfler's fingerpicking technique and clean, precise tone have made him one of the most distinctive guitarists in history. Yet Richards has hinted that he finds Knopfler's style too controlled, almost clinical. While Knopfler delivers flawless execution and memorable melodies, Keith argues that his playing sometimes lacks the unfiltered rawness that he cherishes. It's not that Knopfler isn't talented. In fact, Richards acknowledges his genius. But to Keith, technique without the emotional edge feels incomplete. What unites Clapton and Knopfler in Richards' critique is philosophy over ability. Both are brilliant guitarists, but they prioritize technical perfection and clarity, sometimes at the expense of raw expression. Keith values grit, imperfection, and groove above all else. The fire and soul behind a note matter more than the note itself being perfect. That's the lens through which he judges guitarists. And it explains why even legendary players like Clapton and Knopfler earn a spot on his most hated list. It's essential to understand that Keith's hatred is rarely personal. He doesn't wish harm or truly despise these musicians. His criticisms are philosophical and musical, reflecting his deep-seated beliefs about what the guitar should communicate. While Malmsteen dazzles with speed, Vai with spectacle, Van Halen with tapping, and Lukather with polish, Clapton and Knopfler demonstrate that even masterful control can feel soulless if it lacks raw energy. By the time we examine all 6 guitarists, a clear pattern emerges. Keith Richards' dislikes aren't about ego, rivalry, or jealousy. They're about authenticity, emotional connection, and musical philosophy. He admires guitarists who serve the song, communicate feeling, and embrace imperfection. Those who prioritize technique, flash or polish above all else no matter how skilled, often fail to meet his exacting standards. For fans of guitar, this list offers a rare glimpse into the mind of one of rock's greatest icons, a man who has defined the sound of generations and isn't afraid to tell it like it is, even about his peers.